If you had visited Côte d'Ivoire under its first president, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, you would have been surprised how developed a post-colonial nation could be. A significant portion of its economy has been tied to producing cash crops. Currently, in oil production, Côte d'Ivoire ranks only 11th in Africa and 51st in the world, but it ranks 1st in cocoa, 5th in Robusto coffee, and 8th in palm oil production in the world. Now, unfortunately, Ivory Coast, once the beacon of peace and prosperity, is consumed by civil war, and its citizens, the ones who have refused to leave, now live in terror. Civil war broke out in 2011 as a result of a disputed election. Challenger Alassane Ouattara was determined to be the victor by UN observers, but incumbent Laurent Gbagbo won according to the Ivorian Electoral College, which is widely thought to have been rigged. Supporters of both sides took to the streets in protest and were fired upon by armed factions on both sides. Gbagbo refused to give up power and stressed the Ivorian sovereignty. The armed factions looted the countryside and murdered many, regardless of their political affiliations. All regions of the country were impacted, with a huge exodus through Liberia and Ghana.
Dancing, singing, the message is clear. Gbagbo must go. It's a light-hearted demonstration. The women use leaves to symbolically brush away his regime. Then this.
The political deadlock has resulted in violence that has killed at least 200 people.
The United Nations is warning of an increasing humanitarian crisis in Ivory Coast, with reports of hundreds of executions and kidnappings.
People are immensely traumatized. They have witnessed terrible violence and many have been directly targeted. Women told me stories of witnessing their husbands being executed. Hundreds of children have been separated from their parents, and women and girls have allegedly been kidnapped.
Ivory Coast neighbours have called for the UN's peacekeeping mandate to be strengthened to protect civilians more robustly.
Accounts of the rebels' brutality record that both sides killed people in ways reminiscent of the Aztec human sacrifice. They cut open civilians' chests, removed the hearts, and displayed them for everyone to see. Other civilians fleeing for their lives were heartlessly shot or cut down with knives. Around the western city of Douekwe, pro-Ouattara fighters massacred hundreds of ethnic Guerre of civilians perceived as supporting Gbagbo on April 9, 2011. They also raped more than 20 women and burned at least 10 villages. Killing and raping civilians is no way for Ouattara's forces to end this conflict, said Daniel Bekele, African director at Human Rights Watch.
They were shooting in all directions indiscriminately, says this refugee. Bullets were going everywhere. They shot in all directions, including with rockets, so we fled the village.
The United Nations is also expressing deep concern about human rights violations in Ivory Coast. Now, Ivory Coast residents are fleeing ethnic clashes in the western town of Douekwe. At least 33 people were killed last week and another 75 wounded. Approximately 12,000 people are being sheltered in a Catholic mission, but the numbers are expected to rise as the influx of refugees continues.
Abidjan, however horrible its situation, has seen nowhere near the atrocities that the countryside has.
Up to 1 million people in Ivory Coast have fled the fighting in the main city Abidjan alone, according to the UN Refugee Agency. Thousands have sought shelter in countries such as Liberia as the violence escalates. There are fears the conflict could spread over the border.
There are 18,000 Ivorian refugees in Ghana who have fled violence at home. The conflict has affected all ages, from the young to the old.
I lost everything. They killed my husband, my brother and my children, and I just came with my granddaughter, and I lost everything, so there's no reason for me to go back.
Many of the refugees are from an ethnic group seen as allied with the ousted leader Laurent Gbagbo.
There could be up to 1 million people just in Abidjan and the surroundings alone who are displaced at this point in time. And that's not counting the people in the West also huge number of people.
He was a successful teacher back home in Côte d'Ivoire just a month ago, and now he's a refugee with no clear future in neighboring Liberia. Philip Chegu and his family fled after being threatened by forces loyal to Alassane Ouattara, the internationally recognized winner of last November's presidential poll.
3 men came to my house around midnight. They were in uniform and armed with AK-47 rifles. I was outside watching. After they left, I went straight to my wife and said, tomorrow morning, we must leave this place. If they found me at home, they would have killed me.
Access to the border is complicated because the roads are really bad. For example, on the stretch going from Gray to Butu, where you had a large number of refugees, we had to starting by repairing 10 bridges.
And sorting out the logistics of getting Ivorian refugees to camps in Liberia equates to money. Aid agencies have appealed for $125 million, but have only received 15. And so with the ongoing political impasse back home and a lackluster aid response, the future feels bleak to Philippe.
With all the refugees in Liberia, many of the Liberian villages are under huge stress. This puts the refugees and many villagers under dependence on foreign food aid. The situation, although it appears to be getting better, is still very dire. This effect is compounded by the fact that it has largely fallen off of the international radar. Many in the camps suffer from diseases like PTSD and are too scared to go home. It is crucial that we give them the help and support that they need to be able to return home and cope with the loss of loved ones. In early April 2011, the inflow of refugees exceeded 1,300 per day, with nearly 100,000 already in the camps. This schoolhouse was designed to have 1,500 occupants at the maximum. It now provides shelter for over 3 times that many, with many forced to camp outside with no permanent shelter.
Okay, my name is Mr. Beba Eve. I'm an Ivorian refugee in Dui camp, Grande County, Republic of Liberia.
Okay. Tell me, how long have you been here in this camp?
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Okay. And where is your home in Ivory Coast?
Okay, I'm from Bulikin, especially from Medibli.
Medibli.
Yeah.
And how far are you from your home?
Okay, from home I can estimate to 200 kilometers.
200 kilometers. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're now in Grand Jita County in northeastern Liberia. How long did it take you to get from your home to this camp?
Okay. Before leaving from my area, really, I left abruptly, and I spent 2 weeks in the bush because there was no way for me to cross, the Kavala River. We have to wait and call someone here to come and get us in a canoe to cross. I can say we spent almost 1 week before getting here.
And why did you flee Ivory Coast?
Okay, I flee from Africa because my life was in danger and insecurity was really in large proportion.
Okay. So you felt that your life was in danger, that you had to...
Yeah, my life was in danger.
You had to leave.
Yeah. Amos said initial investigations had revealed that hundreds of people have been executed. Amos praised the Liberian government for its role in assisting refugees from Ivory Coast, but added that relief efforts had only 26% of the money needed. She called on the international community to help.
With more money, we can deliver more food, provide shelter, offer better medical treatment to those who are sick, and much more. And I'm concerned that when the rainy season starts, which is not too far away, getting the aid in is going to be even more difficult than it is now, because there are serious logistical and transport problems. However, the events of the last week are a wake-up call to the international community that if we are serious about preserving the hard-won peace and stability that have prevailed in West Africa in recent years, we must address what is happening now.
The worst part of this crisis is that it did not reach international headlines because, as Ivorians say, no oil, no coverage, according to BBC's Listening Post. While Ivory Coast does have oil, Libya has far more and pushed the Ivorian crisis off of the front page in North America. In addition, many in the world view the crisis to be over because the civil war is over. However, the refugee camps need to be maintained until the Ivorians are able to return to their homes. In this situation where you have a very limited space and where you have large crowds of refugees, outbreaks of diseases such as cholera and dysentery would have been a major problem, said Shamilis Mekonnen, Oxfam's public health engineer in Harper City, Liberia. But with the arrival of Oxfam on time, we have provided clean water as well as sanitation facilities, as well as non-food item distribution such as jerry cans, water buckets, bathing places, as well as soap and mosquito nets.